Hi friends, up till now probably you must have heard about various ways by which microorganisms they interact with the world around them. We have seen that how one bacteria interacts with other bacteria, we have seen how one bacteria interacts with some other fungi. We had seen that like how these bacteria and viruses they interact with animals, right? Probably we are more aware of that particular interaction. We are more interested in how microorganisms are interacting with the humans, how microorganisms are interacting with some crop plants which are important to humans. We actually, I think, sometimes very selfish in studying microbiology, because you see most of the studies which we have focused only on things which are really important to us as such, right? But then there exists a world of microorganisms. Microbes, they don't exist for us, right? As we don't exist for anyone else, right? Similarly, I think that microbes also don't exist only for us. They have their own interactions, they have their own relationships with other organisms. And really, this particular world of microbial ecology, I sometimes think is underexplored. We have heard about many pathogens causing diseases to plants. We have heard about many pathogens causing diseases to animals. We have also heard about viruses which are infecting the bacteria. Like, I think some of them have got a very limelight, and some of them have remained under the shadows. So one such particular interaction, I think is much less known or talked about, is where a particular fungus is what you call as killing a particular nematode. Probably you must have not heard about it much, but that there are fungi in nature which are actually predating on these particular nematodes, right? We know about nematodes, we know about parasites which infect us properly, but we probably know less about these particular group of fungi which are actually preying on these particular nematodes. Like, it's so interesting to know that these particular fungi, the microorganisms, are actually predating, eating the macroorganism. Such surprising thing to know that there are these fungi which are actually capturing its prey, and its prey is not another bacteria, its prey is not smaller than itself, its prey is a nematode, right? A fungi which cannot move on its own, right? A fungi which is sitting at one place is capturing a nematode which can actually move around. So for this it has to develop various mechanisms. So today we are going to explore how these particular fungi are actually capturing these particular nematodes. There are many groups of fungi which are actually eating these particular nematodes. They won't eat nematodes in all the cases. You'll find that these particular nematodes, they are being used as a source of what you call as your nitrogen. So it has been observed that whenever they are suffering, these fungi are suffering from a deficiency of nitrogen, only in that particular scenario, these particular fungi, they are what you call as infecting, capturing these particular nematodes. It is really interesting to know that how these fungi might be capturing these nematodes, right? Some of the group of organisms or fungi, like your Arthrobotrys, right? This is one of the oldest studied fungi, Arthrobotrys, Oligospora, and many other species. You have Dactylella species, you have Dactylaria species. Most of these particular fungi which are predating on these nematodes, they belong to Deuteromycota, but there are classes of fungi like which belong to Basidiomycota which are also feeding on these particular fungi. How exactly these fungi they do this? Now these fungi, they will produce an extensive structures for capturing these nematodes. They do it by various mechanisms. There is a lot of diversity in this also. They will produce adhesive hyphal structures, they will produce adhesive network of fibers, they will produce adhesive pads, they will produce adhesive knobs, some of them they produce adhesive rings, and some of them they produce what you call as your constructing rings. All these structures you will find are expressed by these particular fungi only when they find that there is a nematode around. A classical example where a prey itself is making this particular fungi to express and produce structures which will actually capture that particular prey. Probably it's like a person gets angry when he sees the person who is responsible for his anger. You don't go on slapping people all around. You have that capacity to do that, but then you do it only when you see that person. Probably this is what happens with that fungi. Fungi does not keep on producing those structures every now and then. It will not go on producing those constructive rings and constructive pads and adhesive structures, but it will do it only when it senses that there is a nematode around. So whenever there is a nematode around, the fungi will start expressing and it will start producing these adhesive structures. So prey itself, as I told, in Hindi they say कि अपने ही पैर पे कुल्हाड़ी मारना, म्हणजे something like that. I think these nematodes might be doing something. From these nematodes is signaling these particular fungi कि now your prey is in your vicinity. And once this prey is in the vicinity, this particular fungi starts expressing these constructive rings and what you call as adhesive rings. All its efforts of the nematode, matlab, as I told, ki nematode is actually motile, it can move from one place to another. But then all its efforts, matlab, though it tries violently to escape from this particular fungi, but all its efforts they fail. Because what happens is, the fungi, it has an adhesive network of fibers. Once the nematode enters it and there is an adhesion, it's violent shaking and trying to, what you call is, go out of that particular network. What it does, it only has multiple points of attachment, because the entire network is now adhesive. So once the nematode has entered and it is violently moving and shaking and trying to go out of it, the more it tries to go out of it, it has more contact points with that adhesive pads, and it gets trapped more. So this is what happens. When it is trying to move through those constructive rings, well, nematode doesn't know that it is going to get captured there. Otherwise it would have not gone. But then when this nematode is passing those constructive rings, there is a swelling, there is a osmotic changes which takes place in these particular rings, and this particular fungal ring which is there, the constructive ring, it gets constricted and it blocks the movement of that particular fungi. And now it will start releasing enzymes. And these enzymes will now penetrate into this particular fungi and it will kill the fungi. And it will start taking the, what you call as, nutrients from this particular fungi. So there are some specific chemicals which are released. There are some specific enzymes which are released. There are specific secondary metabolites which are released, which will kill this particular fungi. Not all of them will be so elaborative in capturing these particular fungi. All of them will not do it. Everyone, as I told, there is a lot of diversity in this also. You will find that the edible species of mushroom which you eat, the pleurotus species. So different species of pleurotus species, you would be surprised to know, probably, some of you might be knowing, that they are also feeding on these particular nematodes. But their way of killing it is different. Everyone has their own ways. Everyone has their own ways of survival. So similarly, these fungi also, though all these are different species are feeding on these, but they have their own ways. Like they may produce adhesive pad, they may produce adhesive knobs, they may produce constructive rings. But pleurotus says that I want to eat a fungus, but I will not spend my energy in producing all these adhesive structures. Probably it doesn't like sticky things. We don't know what exactly happens with it. But then pleurotus, what it does is, it starts producing certain toxins. And these particular toxins, whenever it sees these particular nematodes, these toxins are released and the nematode, it gets paralyzed. And once this particular nematode is paralyzed, ab ek bar wo paralyzed ho gaya, once that is paralyzed, it will, what you call as, send its branches and take all the nutrients from this particular nematode, kill the nematode completely and predate on it. So this is how these particular fungi are actually feeding on these particular nematodes. As I told, today we only had a brief introduction of these particular fungi, the, what you call as, your nematode eating fungi. We'll be discussing more on how exactly these happens, which are those chemicals which are being released, which are those enzymes which are actually killing those particular nematodes, and which are those secondary metabolites which are responsible for paralysis of this particular what you call as your nematode. Till then, if you know some of these chemicals, if you know one or two chemicals here and there, if you know one or two more species of fungi which are actually feeding on these particular nematodes, you can, your comments are welcome in the comment box, right? So that will let us explore more together this wonderful world of microbiology. Stay tuned with me for more in microbiology. Thank you so much.